Hello everybody and welcome to this new webinar in the Open Discovery Space series. Today's webinar is entitled Envision South Carolina's World-Class Scholars, a Global Online Education Opportunity. This webinar will introduce the World-Class Scholars Program, a real-time cross-cultural learning program that matches classrooms in the US with classrooms internationally to hold weekly online learning sessions. The webinar will cover topics including what is Envision South Carolina, what is World-Class Scholars, goals and objectives of the program, an introduction to the Teacher Handbook, Connect, Learn and Share, example classrooms activities, next steps, and we'll conclude with an opportunity for questions. As many of you already know, the Open Discovery Space project aims at the introduction of modern pedagogies through the use of ICT and the building of strong online communities of schools all over Europe and beyond. This webinar that involves the implementation of an innovative activity, the use of exciting digital material in the classroom, and aspects of ODS community building serves the purpose of the project. Today we have with us Henry Bennett and Phil Noble. Henry Bennett has worked in international development as Peace Corps volunteer and in his current capacity at Envision South Carolina. He now manages the World-Class Scholars program in 54 schools in South Carolina. Phil Noble founded Envision South Carolina in 2013 as a way to make South Carolina world-class and globally connected. As a businessman and consultant, Mr. Noble has had significant impact on the development of South Carolina for over 20 years. So now I hand it over to Phil. Phil, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Roberto, and thank you to all of you who are listening to the participating in the webinar. I know that there are about 1,000 other things you could be doing right now in terms of going shopping, watching videos, or taking care of your kids. So I appreciate your taking the time to participate in this. Let me begin with just a short introduction about what we are doing and how you can be a part of it and why I think it is so special. World-class scholars is really a big idea. It is begun in South Carolina, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But our vision for world-class scholars is for it to be truly a global project with eventually hundreds of thousands and potentially millions of schools. We have been working with both Google, the BBC, and the media labs at MIT in developing this project. Many of you may remember MIT Media Labs for their one laptop per child project, the small little green computers that did so much to explore the idea of online learning in the developing world. And we worked with them on that project. So again, we are at the beginning of what we think is a very exciting, potentially very important project. And the fact that you are interested in it and would possibly become involved is, I think, very special, and it says something about your willingness to get involved and work in something that could eventually have global impact, as we will. So with that, let me give you a little bit of introduction about Envision South Carolina and who we are. South Carolina is a small state in the southeastern part of the United States. We have about 4 million people. We are about 70% Caucasian, white, about 27% African American, and about 5% Hispanic. By American standards, and I know that's a pretty recent standards, we are a very old state. And people mostly know South Carolina is the state that started our American Civil War. We are a very controversial state. We're always causing problems, if you will, within the American governmental and political system. So we're sort of unique. We're a little different here. And the goal of Envision, you want to flip to the next slide, Henry? Mm-hmm. The goal of Envision is to help people in this state dream big dreams, connect, and learn together with people around the world. That picture there, as you see, is Ben Bernanke, who is the former chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank. He is from South Carolina. He has been involved in this project, and we hope that he will have more involvement in the future. And his stature, I think, will help grow and expand this project worldwide. So we're hoping Ben Bernanke will play an increasingly large role in developing this big idea. We try to find people and projects that have the potential to be world-class. That's really what we are about. Our motto is world-class and globally connected. So we are trying to find ideas and people and projects in our state that have the potential to be world-changing, world-class projects. And number two, we want to connect people using technology in South Carolina to other people worldwide. And we think there's no better place to begin than begin with students, young people. And that's what led us to the World Class Scholars Project. The World Class Scholars is in some ways very, very simple, but it has great potential. World Class Scholars is simply a real-time, online, cultural and educational exchange between schools in South Carolina and schools globally. That's it. We provide the tools, the framework, the structure, but it's really about simply making the connection and giving young people around the world a way to connect, what we call connect, learn, and share. Connect with others around the world, share what they have learned, learn together, and then share it with others and around the world. And again, we'll be talking a little bit more in detail about that. Henry, on the next slide there. This is a video that we will send you, if you would be so kind as to just send an email to Henry Bennett. Henry, or let me do that. You send it to me. Just if you will send an email to Phil, P-H-I-L, @philnoble.com. We can send you a link to this video. This is a short 3-minute video that explains the program. I regret that Google and YouTube couldn't make the connection. This is on YouTube, and we can share it with you, but it has not been. It won't work on this platform right now. But this is just one. A short video that highlights one class that is a 3rd grade class which makes them about 9 and 10 years old in South Carolina that connects with a school in Kenya. You want to flip, Henry? To date, we have 62 schools in the United States that are in the program that we're connecting with 62 schools around the world. So in one sense, we're still very early in that we've only been doing this for about 14 months. But 62 schools is enough in this country and 62 internationally to begin to give us some sense of how this will work. Again, the two components are both the cultural piece and the educational piece. The program is free to schools, the schools in South Carolina, as well as the schools globally. And as I said earlier, our theme is world-class and globally connected, both world-class in the sense of quality, but also world-class in the sense of being a classroom for the world. And as I said, our motto, our process is connect, learn, and share. And we have the distinct sort of three-part process that Henry will talk about in just a minute. You got the next one, Henry? As I said, we provide everything that's needed for the two schools to connect and work together. We help provide matching schools. We work with an organization called the British Council, and we have a database of 6,000 schools that are interested in connecting online. So we can develop the connection between South Carolina and international schools, and as we will soon move into another phase where schools could connect, for example, from Greece to Kenya, separate from South Carolina. We're not quite there yet, but we will be before long. We use the Google Hangout technology. We identify the two teachers on either side, and it's a teacher-based program. We connect the teachers, they work together to develop a lesson plans and the daily plan for how they're going to teach. We provide support for the classrooms and the teachers, helping them work through problems. And at the end, we provide student recognition. If you go all the way through the program, then we provide a certificate that the students are indeed a world-class scholar having finished the program. So that's the basic outline of world-class scholars and an overview of how it operates. Henry? And Henry Bennett, who will pick up the presentation from here. Henry was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya who helped get the program started between a school in Kenya and a school in South Carolina. And Henry is the day-to-day manager of the program. And he will be the one that you will be having the most contact with. So, Henry, I'll turn it over to you from there.
All right. Thank you, Phil. I hope everyone can hear me all right. I'm going to stop sharing the presentation quickly so that I can at least say hello face-to-face, and we'll get back to the presentation. But again, hello, my name is Henry Bennett, and I appreciate the introduction. As both Phil and Roberto had mentioned, I've been working with the World Class Scholars as a manager of the program and the director of our school partnerships. So to get back to the presentation and continue with talking you through what the program entails, how it looks like from a day-to-day basis and what the classroom activities actually look like. We start here with some of our goals and outcomes for the students who are involved in World Class Scholars. So we have put together our Teacher Handbook package, which I'll get into in a second. But as students go through the program, the World Class Scholars, and connect with their partner classrooms, learn from their partner classrooms, and eventually share their opportunity and their partnership online and in their community, Envision South Carolina has made it a point that the students gain valuable technology fluency skills, learn how to work collaboratively across cultures and across communication barriers and across time zones through the Teacher Handbook and through the partnership. Working together on a project also helps students build project-based learning skills. And overall, in the end, we've made it one of our biggest commitments to improve student engagement in the classroom as well. And so that means both attendance, but also participation, interest, and hopefully enjoyment of the learning environment within their school. So, as we alluded to before, we have put together our Teacher Handbook for the World Class Scholars, and it is structured along an entire school year's timeline, following through 3 phases within the program of connect, learn, and share. Here on the presentation you can see that we have one of our sample outlines that is broken down by week as well as activity, and highlighted which phase that all of those activities fall into. Excuse me. So from here, I will actually walk you through what it looks like to be a part of the program from start to finish over the course of the year, and walk you through how the program looks to teachers as well as students within the classroom, and then we'll give you some examples. So the first phase of the World Class Scholars program is the Connect phase. This is possibly the most important and vital part of the program, because this is where the relationship between the 2 classrooms begins to take shape. So, as Phil mentioned, we partner and match the classrooms on the U.S. side with the classrooms internationally based on subject, age, availability for time zones, and other considerations. And once they are matched, they're introduced and start their journey in the Connect phase. So this part of the program lasts about 1 to 3 months. We've kept it open and flexible enough so that the teachers can really drive how quickly they want to move through. But in the initial part of the connection, the teachers are introduced. They meet face-to-face themselves via Google Hangouts here to start planning and preparing for their sessions with their students. From the teacher preparation and planning, the students come on board and begin with quick question and answer sessions, presentations about their home country and their home community and their home classroom, as well as general discussions around what their interests are within school, outside of school, and basically developing the relationship between the 2 classrooms and between the students so that they move throughout the program with a better mutual understanding and connection throughout. Once the students have spent 2 to 3 sessions together live, interacting back and forth, and answering questions and presenting about themselves and getting to know each other better, they begin to find that there are certain commonalities that each classroom has. Out of those commonalities, the teachers help facilitate a project and learning activities that focus around some common theme that they've found during their connect phase. So let's take, for example, students, which I'll discuss a little bit more in detail, students in South Carolina and students in Croatia. They start talking, they find out that both classrooms have an interest in sports. They start sharing what sports are played in each country, which sports are played at the school, what the importance of sport is within the classroom and within the school setting. And they go back and forth comparing those, comparing and diving deeper into that topic as part of their learning activity over the course of the 3 to 6 months during Phase 2. From Phase 2, as the students finish up with their learning activities and their project based around the common theme, they move to the share phase of the program, which is towards the end of the school year, after they have been together for almost 6 months now. They finish up and they finalize the program by showcasing what they've learned and what they've done up to now. So the showcase activities come in the form of school presentations and assemblies, so sharing their work with the rest of their peers and the rest of the individuals in their community. It also involves media outlets and publications in the forms of newspapers and news sources to highlight the success of that classroom within their community as being a role model and being a world-class classroom. And then the partnership is shared online as well through the Envision South Carolina website for other teachers involved in the program to get inspiration from, to gather ideas from, to compare what worked and what didn't work, and to be part of a community, the online community, through world-class scholars, or creating valuable and culturally significant learning activities within their classrooms. The year finishes up with a celebration and student recognition, as we mentioned before, in the form of certificates as world-class scholars. And the students then prepare themselves to continue within the program over the course of the next year. So with that, I alluded to one of our examples before, but I think I want to highlight our another classroom example that takes you through that 3-phase program that I just outlined for you, and gives a little more context to what we're doing within the classrooms. So I'm very proud to talk about our partnership between Joe Pye Elementary School and a classroom in Port Victoria, Kenya. So this is one of our initial classrooms, one of the first pilot programs that was ever established, and it involves a 3rd grade classroom in the US and a 3rd grade classroom in Kenya. So they started off with, in their connect phase, by doing a question and answer session, actually 2 question and answer sections, where the US students prepared questions that they were interested in asking the Kenyan students, and the Kenyan students reciprocated and prepared questions for the US students that they were interested in knowing. The questions focused around general life in the community, including weather, what kind of foods they eat, what they like to do outside of school, what their families and communities do in terms of professions. And it was found that the communities indeed had very similar climates because they were both coastal communities living on bodies of water, and that in fact that they ate similar foods and foods that were made from similar produce. So with the help of the teachers, the students determined that that is an area, a topic area that they were interested in exploring further, and they decided to dive deeper into food, agriculture, and the impact of the environment and climate on those things. So each side, moving into the learn phase of the program, each side took 2 sessions to explain weather patterns in each of their communities, rainfall in each of their communities, temperatures in each of their communities, and presenting the climate of South Carolina versus the climate of Kenya. They spent another 2 sessions comparing the foods that are grown in each area, how they are grown in each area, and what type of foods they then eat, what kind of meals they then cook based on the foods that are grown there. Finally, as the year concluded, they moved into the, as the learn phase concluded, they determined to do a project that both classrooms and both communities could work on to then share with the rest of their school, and they determined to plant a garden at their school that had produce and vegetable that could be found in both areas. So they both grew onions and tomatoes and lettuce, some sunflowers, and potatoes that could be found and grown in both countries, both communities, based on the climate, the weather patterns, and all of the information that they had learned up to this point. After they planted, they watched their seedlings grow, they measured how well they grew, compared how well they grew in each community, and finally, towards the end of the year, as they began to share their experience with the rest of the school and with the rest of the community, they actually harvested some of the produce, some of the tomatoes and onions, and were able to cook up a meal together and share it virtually as a culmination of the project. So given that example, you can see how a classroom can work through the program over the course of a year, can learn from each other through the course of the year, and can learn by actual tangible experiences and project-based learning over the course of the year to improve their engagement and to improve their interest in the classroom. So, as we alluded to earlier, we partner with a number of communities throughout the world, and Phil will continue by talking about some of our partners and highlighting some of the areas and regions that we work in. So, thank you, Phil.
Sure. As we said, we are at the beginning of this program. We now have about 15 countries that we are working with, and some of the, as you see there on the map, in Europe anyway, primarily so far it's been England and Ireland, Germany, Malta, Croatia, or where we have active partnerships. We also have discussions that we hope will become full partners with Sweden and Estonia, Russia, Spain, Portugal. I'm forgetting some. Greece, we have a number in Greece. So we really do want to expand into Europe as much as possible. As I said, we are at the beginning of this project, and our plan is that as these lessons are conducted online, it's about 1 hour a week. About 20 minutes of it is the sort of cultural exchange about what's happening in various schools and communities, and about 40 minutes of it is the academic lesson. And we have begun to capture those lessons, the video on both sides, and we will put these up online, and they'll be tagged by, it's English language between a school in South Carolina and a school in Poland. It's about agriculture or tourism or whatever. And then it will be rated. Both the students and the teachers will rate it in terms of its value. And others, it will be like a Wikipedia page where others can come, they can add to it, they can improve it, they can enhance it in a variety of ways. And we hope in time that this online lesson archive becomes not just dozens or hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands, but eventually sort of millions of potential classrooms, that it becomes this global library. And again, the BBC, Google, and MIT Media Labs are our principal partners in the development of this. So I want you to sort of think of this as the beginning of something terrific. We have lots of things that we'll change and learn as we develop. We've already changed a lot of things as we have grown and developed. And what we're asking you is to join us in that experiment. Join us in developing something that could be really, really huge and important globally. And that's the big idea here, is that it's a system that eventually could connect not only schools in South Carolina and around the world, but other countries. As I said, it could be South Africa and Mongolia. It could be India and Australia. So we're at the beginning of this big and bold idea, and we'd like to have your participation, your help in trying to create something really special that I think we will all be proud of, and be proud to have been present at the creation, as they say. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to Roberto to do question and answer. Henry, you want to put up the last slide there? This is how you can reach Henry, bennett.henry.o@gmail. Henry can send you a link to the video as well. We apologize for that. That's Google is wonderful, but it's not perfect yet. So we'll figure that out as we go. Roberto?
Okay, I want to remember to the audience that they can ask questions using the Q&A app. So while we are waiting for questions from the audience, I have one question. Do learners find motivating to have lessons plans that are carried out together with the students from other classrooms and even from other countries? I mean, if it increases their motivation.
Yes, it does. Again, we are very early in measuring the performance of students and measuring the behavior. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but we're working with the Graduate School of Education at Harvard University, the College of Charleston in South Carolina, some of the former leaders in the United States Department of Education to help us develop standards and metrics to measure performance of the educational value to students. Certainly the cultural part is important, but ultimately it's about improving the education and a sense of global citizenship. And we are finding student attendance on days that we do the online lessons. Teachers have told us their attendance is better. They have told us that students are more engaged. I'll tell you one little story about a small town in South Carolina, and I think it applies very much to other places around the world. We had a session in a school system called Allendale, and it was one of the poorest parts of South Carolina. And there was a young girl there who, at the end of last year, I asked her what she was going to do for the summer. And she said she was going to do two things. One, she wanted to go to the ocean. She had never seen the beach and the ocean. And this is despite the fact that she only lived about 30 miles from the ocean. And secondly, she said, I've got to study up on Kenya. You know, I have friends in Kenya. Well, she was so excited about Kenya, and other students in her class were so excited that they studied over the summer. And in this small town, about June, I got a call from the librarian, and she said, all of our books on Africa have been checked out of the library because all these students are so interested in Africa now. Can you help us get some more books on Africa? So I tell that story because this is about one little girl in one small town whose worldview has changed, and her attitude and her interest and her study has changed simply because of this program. And again, that's one little story, but there are dozens and dozens of those in South Carolina and dozens of those stories of children in Kenya. Again, I keep saying Kenya because that's one of our biggest programs. But yes, we think it's going to happen globally, that you will begin to see in the children a difference. Plus, we're going to be able to measure with a variety of tools as we go along. So, does that answer the question, Roberto?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for your answer, Phil. I have another question. It's about the workflow for carrying out the project-based learning approach that you were exposing. I understood that first it comes the connection phase when you build partnerships with other schools, probably from other countries, and after that phase it starts the project development. My question is if it would make sense the other way around. I mean, maybe a particular school wants to carry out a learning project, and then other schools from other parts of the world may join that particular school on the basis of a particular project idea.
Yes is the short answer. The Envision, I mean, the World-Class Scholars process is designed to be very flexible. Our job is making the connection in giving the teachers on either side a framework, a template, a structure of how they can move through the learning and sharing phase. It is absolutely up to the two teachers to change it, to modify it, to bring in additional resources, additional people. Wonderful. We're all for that. We just want to provide the minimum structure, the minimum process, but absolutely we are all about encouraging teachers to take it and run with it, to adopt it, to change it, to make it fit their needs. And that's what makes it so special, is because no two teachers, no two schools are alike, but yet here is a framework and a structure where they can meet, where they can learn together, where they can share. But absolutely, our goal is to mobilize that creativity, that interest, that initial burst of enthusiasm by the teachers on both sides. The more they take ownership and adopt it and change it to make it work for them, the better.
And also, if you don't mind me adding, we certainly take into account during the matching of the teachers their interests in subject areas and their goals for the program. So there is certainly a level of that reverse nature that you mentioned, Roberto, where the interest in a project comes first, and then the matching and the connection starts. There's somewhat of a mix and match there, while we get teachers matched with their partner classrooms. So, of course, we're trying to put teachers together who are going to have some common themes already between their classrooms, but then they're able to explore each other in more depth throughout the connecting phase of the program to then create a relevant and educational project within the learn phase. So.
Okay, thank you, Phil, Henry, for your answers. It seems there are no questions from the audience, so I think we can finish the webinar, if you agree. Is that okay?
Yes, I would just encourage anyone who is watching who is interested to, Henry, can you go back to that, to your web address, to the email. If you have interest in the program, any way, shape, or form, please contact Henry at this email, and we will help match you with a school that is in keeping with what you're trying to do. We keep telling teachers that we're not giving you a new thing to do, because teachers already all over the world have enough to do. But what we're trying to do is to give you a process and a new set of tools to teach what you're already teaching, but do it in a more interesting, a different way. Whether you're teaching math or science, we want you to keep teaching math and science. This is just a way to engage others around the world who are also teaching math and science or any other subject. So it's about being flexible and about helping you as a teacher do your job even better in a more creative, interesting, unusual way. So most importantly, thank you. Thank you for your interest in this. Thank you for your taking the time to listen. And most importantly, thank you for what you're doing in terms of teaching the children all around the world. It's the single most important profession. And thank you for being committed to do it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Roberto, and the rest of the ODS community for having us today. Again, I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm more than happy to provide you any supplemental information that you have. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. And again, we appreciate the opportunity here to talk with you today. So.
Thank you, Henry and Phil, for this very interesting initiative. And thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Today's session has been recorded, so you can replay it at any time on the ODS channel in YouTube. And thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.